I'm Adam, and this is Shadow Alley, my low-budget filmmaking project. I grew up and started appreciating movies in the 80s and 90s when practical effects were king. Special effects, especially creature effects in horror movies, were typically done in camera, using practical elements that gave a real, tangible quality when filmed. Today, with the insane power of computers, filmmakers can put absolutely anything on screen that they can dream up without these practical limitations. Which sounds like a wonderful thing, right? But is it really? Let's take a look at practical effects versus computer effects. As the owner of an 80s-style horror production company, I bet you're going to assume that I hate everything about CGI. Well, that's not entirely true. The question of practical versus digital for me isn't quite as simple as you might think. So let me try to explain. Although I am a fan of practical effects, first and foremost, it's unfair to say that computer effects are bad or don't belong in film. There are a ton of really great computer effects added seamlessly to movies every single day, which are removing the limitations on filmmakers, allowing them to produce anything they can imagine. When CGI is done well, you usually can't even notice it. You'd probably be surprised at the amount of digital effects that go unnoticed in almost every film shot today, and most of the great movies produced in the last decade wouldn't have been as good, in my opinion, without the help of computers. Computers are a tool, just like the camera equipment, the audio equipment, the cast and crew. They are a piece of the movie puzzle that have an absolute place in film, and when used correctly, can increase the quality of a movie and help to create amazing visuals. To say that there shouldn't be any computer effects in a movie is definitely not my position. But when low-budget movies rely solely on computers for living creature effects, it creates a film that completely lacks the charm of its 80s counterparts. Now, my passion and focus of my production company are in horror, which usually is a lower budget genre than all the others. Horror filmmakers typically have less money to spend and therefore rely on low budget CGI for their effects, which is where there's a true complaint from me. Taste is subjective, but for me, a digital creature, while technically amazing, takes me completely out of the movie. They just don't look real to me, and they don't seem to be occupying the same space on screen that the actors are. They look like an addition to the frame, rather than an actual part of it. The same thing can be said about bad green screen effects. When too much focus is put on this tool, it makes a scene that doesn't quite fool the eye. When used correctly, and in addition to all the other tools, it can help to sell the scene and make a great movie. This is where I believe computer effects excel. Background replacement, inanimate objects, and vehicles can be seamlessly placed into a scene with computers and can fool the eye as well as the best set designer and location. I guess for me the key is believability, or maybe even more correctly put, my ability to suspend disbelief while watching a movie. So let's explore this idea a bit more. If I watch an animated movie, I don't complain that the animations aren't real, tangible characters. When I watch a Pixar movie, I don't see them as digital creatures. I'm able to suspend my disbelief because the entire movie is digital and consistent. So I guess you could say that one part of a movie allowing me to suspend my disbelief is consistency in effects. It's harder to do this when a film tries to combine practical with digital effects in the same scene. A real, tangible, practical character interacting with a clearly digital creature creates an inconsistent scene that to me looks fake. This is why the movie Jurassic Park amazes me completely every time I watch it. Here is a movie done in the infancy of digital effects that combine both computer animated creatures with practical puppets and has done it as close to believable as anything done today. Now let me admit freely that I and my 6-year-old nephew can point out which dinosaurs are puppets and which are computer generated. So my eye and brain are clearly seeing a difference. But why didn't I mind it as much with Jurassic Park? This leads me to another part of filmmaking that allows me to suspend my disbelief. Really great storytelling. You'd find it very difficult to find anyone that thinks Steven Spielberg is a bad storyteller. He's a brilliant director that knows how to develop a great story and movie. When you know how to immerse an audience into your film using every trick in the book, you can get away with slightly inconsistent effects. And to be fair, Jurassic Park used only 14 minutes of digital effects in its 2-hour, 7-minute runtime. This is a great example of someone using the tool correctly and immersing the audience with story, mood, and great acting, allowing the visuals to simply help tell the story instead of carry it. So let's get back to this idea of suspension of disbelief, which I think is key. Large budget movies like Jurassic Park are able to entertain in a lot of different ways, from the excellent story to the great acting and beautiful set locations. These all work together to help the audience suspend their disbelief and get fully immersed in the story. I think Jurassic Park would have worked with all CGI or all practical effects, since it had everything else going for it. If you take a mediocre story or B-grade actors and put them in a low-budget horror film and try to rely on digital creatures from a subpar CGI company, you're just asking for criticism from your audience, and you are taking me completely out of the movie. These are the scenarios that lead to the CGI backlash. If everything in a movie is done well, or at least mostly done well, it's entertaining no matter the effects. But if things are done poorly, or if the movie is done on a lower budget, practical effects are simply more believable for me. They allow me to suspend my disbelief and enjoy the movie. Or on super low budget movies, the effects are entertaining for completely different reasons. I can watch and enjoy a cheesy horror film with practical effects almost the same as I would a comedy. I, for some reason, don't get this same feeling or entertainment value from low-budget CGI creatures. So in conclusion, I will not be one of those people that draws a line in the sand regarding practical effects versus CGI. There's definitely room for both, and both can be done poorly or be used to create fantastic films. But unless you have everything working correctly in your movie, which only happens on a few great films a year, then my personal preference is definitely practical effects. There are good and bad movies made today using both, and maybe it's just a nostalgia thing, but I can watch an old bad movie and still be entertained by the creature effects, when today it seems a bad movie doesn't keep my attention, especially when too much of the film looks like it was made with a computer. And until computers are good enough to produce digital creatures that don't take me out of the movie, I'll only use it for inanimate objects and backgrounds, and all my flicks will have good old-fashioned practical monsters.